When I bought those 2 acres just outside Pine VYEW Estates, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. No homeowners association breathing down my neck. No nosy neighbors dictating how I live. Just open land, a solid garage, a carport, and all the freedom I could want. I'm a licensed contractor named Ethan Caldwell specializing in smart infrastructure, solar arrays, that kind of thing. My gear? Not just a toolbox and a hammer. We're talking high-end machinery, laser cutters, diagnostic tablets, solar inverters, a workshop worth overdue lot $200,000, locked up tighter than a bank vault with steel-reinforced doors, motion sensors, floodlights, and cameras that could spot a raccoon from 50 yards. Paranoid? Maybe. But when your livelihood's parked in your garage, you don't mess around. For a while, it was perfect. I'd wake up, chug black coffee, answer emails, and head to the workshop to tinker with prototypes or meet clients dropping off blueprints. My neighbors, a quiet bunch of Therese, dog walkers, the occasional cyclist too stubborn to use the bike lane kept to themselves. Then she showed up. Margaret Hensley, mid-50s, platinum blonde hair, pulled so tight it looked like it was holding her face together, striding across my gravel driveway like she owned the dirt under her sensible flats. No knock, no wave, just her, arms crossed, clipboard in hand, glaring at my garage like it had personally insulted her. "You running a business here?" she snapped. I leaned against my truck, squinting. "Yeah, licensed and insured." "Who are you?" She puffed up. "This is a residential area. We have standards." I grinned, polite but firm. "Ma'am, this is my land, my home, and it's not part of your HOA. Check the county records." She introduced herself as Margaret Hensley, president of Pine VYEW Estates HOA. I nodded, already turning back to my work. "Congrats. Have a nice day." That should have been it. But Margaret wasn't the type to let things go. Over the next few weeks, she became a regular pest. She'd show up with a pamphlet about community harmony, suggest I hide my truck because it was unsightly, and send letters on fancy HOA stationery accusing me of disrupting the neighborhood's aesthetics with my commercial active VY tie. Each time, I sent the same reply. "Not a member, not your jurisdiction, leave me alone." She didn't. Things got weirder. Neighbors stopped making eye contact. A local Facebook group I didn't even know existed started posting photos of my driveway, calling it an industrial eyesore. One flyer in my mailbox compared my workshop to a drug den. Cute. Then a neighbor asked me to tarp my solar mounts because they reflected light into her windows. Another whispered that Margaret had told everyone I was importing hazardous equipment from overseas. Hazardous? My gear's cleaner than her bleached hair. I stayed calm. I had permits, a deed, cameras, everything in order. But the air shifted. Margaret's suburban paranoia was spreading like a virus. I figured she'd burn herself out. I was wrong. I had a big job upstate 3 days installing a solar battery array for a medical lab. High stakes, tight deadline, the kind of work I live for. I left Thursday morning, double-checked the locks, armed the sensors, and asked my buddy Tom next door to keep an eye out. I trusted my setup. Big mistake. Sunday evening, I pulled into my driveway, bone-tired but satisfied. That lasted about 10 seconds. The side gate was wide open, its triple-bolt lock snapped like cheap plastic. My cameras? One was painted over with beige house paint. Another ripped off its mount and lying in the dirt like a crime scene VY Tim. My heart kicked into overdrive. I ran to the carport. Empty. Not just empty-gutted. Every piece of gear, laser rigs, torque tools, cable coils, even the aluminum flight case is gone. All that was left was a folding table with an envelope pinned under a brick. Inside, a typed note on Pine VYEW Estates HOA letterhead saw a notice of abatement. Unauthorized commercial operation ceased per HOA enforcement policy. Equipment confiscated. Saw scrawled in pen at the bottom. Saw you brought this on yourself. Saw. I stood there, hands shaking, not from panic, but from rage. They broke in. They killed my cameras. They stole my livelihood. And they had the nerve to leave a memo like they were ticketing a parked car. I called the cops. Officer Daniels arrived, a young guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I walked him through a property line, cameras, the missing gear worth due lot $200,000. I showed him my deed, my license, the painted over lenses. He scribbled notes, then asked if anyone had a grudge. Yeah, I said. Margaret Hensley, HOA president. She's been harassing me for weeks. Daniels raised an eyebrow. They say you're not in their HOA. I snapped. That's the point. Then we heard gravel crunching. A black SUV rolled up, and out stepped Margaret, flanked by two guys in matching polos who screamed rent-a-cop. She marched over, all smug indignation, and before I could speak, she said, "Officer, I'm here to clarify. This man's running an illegal business, a threat to our community. We took action to protect Pine VYEU's integrity." Daniels blinked. "You're admitting you took his property?" She didn't flinch. "We executed a community directive." He was warned. I stepped forward. "You have no authority here. My land's outside your HOA. She ignored me, spinning lies about me threatening to flood the grid with unlicensed infrastructure. Daniels looked overwhelmed. I demanded a full report. Margaret left with a glare, and I was left staring at an empty carport, wondering how much worse this could get. 2 days later, a guy in a khaki vest shoved a thick envelope into my chest at my front door. "You've been notified," he muttered. It was a cease and desist letter and a county court complaint from Pine VYEW Estates HOA. Margaret claimed I was running an industrial-grade operation, causing noise pollution, traffic, and get this rhetorical aggression, amounting to domestic terrorism. She even had sworn statements from 3 board members saying I'd threatened to burn the system down. Total lie. I told her their bylaws didn't apply to me. That's it. This wasn't petty anymore. She was out for blood. I called Sarah Mitchell, my attorney. She's a real estate law shark who eats bullies for breakfast. I laid it all out. The theft, the harassment, the forged accusations. Sarah's first words. She faked jurisdiction and filed this to cover her crime. She's either a genius or a lawsuit waiting to happen. We met that afternoon. I brought my deed, licenses, insurance, and a zip drive of every document I had. Sarah read in silence, muttering Jesus under her breath. "You're clean," she said. She knows it. This complaint's a smokescreen to make you look like the bad guy. Our plan? Flip the script. By morning, we filed a CIVYL complaint against Margaret and the HOA for unlawful entry, theft, vandalism, defamation, and abuse of process. Sarah also requested a court order to preserve HOA footage and communications. I filed a police report for felony theft, backed by 30 pages of receipts and serial numbers. Then the neighborhood message board lit up. An anonymous user, Pine VYEW Protector, called me a threat, accusing me of storing dangerous chemicals and spying on families. Sarah, and I knew it was Margaret or her cronies. I fought back differently. I printed our complaint and handed it to every neighbor bordering my property. Most were confused. Some apologized. One guy, a retired firefighter named Carl, said, "Margaret's been on a power trip since her divorce. You're just her latest target." Things moved fast. Sarah got a judicial warrant to search the HOA's office, citing the theft and camera sabotage. Wednesday morning, I met her and 2 sheriff's deputies at their prefab office, complete with fake columns and a cracked sign. A receptionist paled when she saw the warrant. The basement was a gold mine. My tools, flight cases, circuit analyzers, even my custom motion detector, stuffed next to a mop bucket. An HOA inventory log listed my gear as a resident donation, under my name, with a forged letter spelling my last name wrong. Idiots. Then we found Ida hidden camera in the basement, still blinking. The SD card showed everything. Margaret directing 2 HOA goons to cut my lock, disable my cameras, and haul my gear away like they were MOVYing furniture. It was deliberate, organized, and criminal. 2 days later, Sarah called. They're arresting her today. At 11:45, deputies cuffed Margaret mid-HOA meeting in front of her board. She screamed it was a stunt, then harassment, then that I was destabilizing order. The charges? Grand theft, trespass, forgery, defamation, obstruction. Her goons, Jake and Ryan, folded fast. Jake, a former storage auction hustler, got probation. Ryan, caught listing my gear on eBay, got a fine and a suspended sentence. Margaret's trial was a bloodbath. Sarah tore through the EVY dense footage, forged letters, eBay listings. The HOA treasurer admitted he'd trusted Margaret's lost donation letter. I testified, showing my licenses and permits, shutting down their illegal business claims. The judge awarded me due law $350,000, due law $200,000 for gear, due law $100,000 for distress, due law $50,000 for legal costs. She stripped the HOA's governance rights, appointing a trustee to overhaul it. Margaret got 8 years for theft, forgery, and conspiracy. Her appeal? Denied. The HOA collapsed. Board members quit. Audits uncovered Margaret's personal spending, spa trips, landscaping, catered meetings. Neighbors who'd shunned me started calling, some genuine, some covering their backs. I rebuilt my workshop better and smarter, with cameras that ping my phone instantly. Above my workbench hangs a courtroom screenshot of Margaret in cuffs, with 3 words stenciled below. Saw never again here, saw. The fight wasn't just about toolsit, it was about drawing a line. Pine VYU's HOA is under county control now, and there's talk of a state bill curbing HOA power. I get emails from people nationwide, stuck in their own HOA nightmares, asking for Add VYC. I always reply, often with a photo of my new gate sign. Saw private property. Tools are mine. Land is mine. HOA keeps out. So what do you think? Was I too harsh fighting back, or did Margaret deserve every bit of it? Should HOAs have any power over private property, or are they just legalized bullying? Drop a comment, hit that like button, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up to petty tyrants. Let's keep this conversation going.